Nathaniel Cross had eaten alone at the same corner table of the Alden Grill every Friday for 6 years. The one habit his assistant never dared reschedule no matter how packed his calendar became. It was the 1 hour of his week that belonged to no one but him. No meetings, no negotiations, just a quiet plate of food and the noise of the city outside the window. That evening business had run long, and half his dinner sat untouched on the plate in front of him. He was reaching for his coat when a small voice spoke from just beside the table. "Excuse me. Can I eat your leftovers?" He turned, startled. A girl stood there, maybe 9 years old, wearing a thin jacket 2 sizes too large, sleeves rolled at the wrist, sneakers worn through at the toe. Her hair was pulled back in a rough braid, and her eyes held the kind of steadiness that children her age shouldn't have to carry, not embarrassed, not begging, just quietly, practically asking. For a moment, Nathaniel didn't know what to say. In 6 years, no one had ever approached his table. "Of course," he managed. "Sit down, I'll order you something fresh." She shook her head quickly. "I just need what's already there. I don't want to be any trouble." Something about the careful precision of that sentence, "I don't want to be any trouble," struck him harder than he expected. He gestured to the seat across from him anyway. "Please, sit." She hesitated, glancing toward the window, toward the darkening street outside, before finally sliding into the chair. She ate slowly, deliberately, the way someone eats when they've learned not to know when the next meal is coming. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Maya," she said between bites. "Are you here with someone, Maya?" Her eyes flicked toward the door. "My mom's outside. She said I could ask since you were leaving the food anyway." Nathaniel's chest tightened. He looked past the girl toward the window and saw a woman standing just beyond the glass, thin, exhausted, wrapped in a coat that had clearly been through several winters. Watching her daughter with an expression that mixed hope and humiliation in equal measure. "Would she like to come in?" he asked. Maya shook her head immediately. "She won't. She doesn't like people seeing us like this." Nathaniel sat with that for a long moment, something shifting quietly behind his composed exterior. He'd built one of the largest logistics companies in the country by making fast decisions and trusting his instincts. Right now, every instinct told him this wasn't a coincidence. He could simply pay his way out of and forget by morning. "Maya," he said carefully, "how long have you and your mom been staying outside?" "Since the spring," she said. Matter of fact in the way only children could manage about things that should never be matter of fact. "We used to have an apartment. My dad worked at a warehouse, but there was an accident, and after that things got hard, and then we couldn't pay rent anymore." Nathaniel went very still. "What warehouse?" Maya thought for a moment, chewing slowly. "I don't remember the name. It had a blue sign. My dad said he worked there a long time before it happened." A cold feeling settled low in Nathaniel's stomach when he couldn't yet explain. Only sense, the way a man senses a storm arriving before the sky has fully changed. He walked Maya to the door himself, carrying a bag with the rest of the meal packed carefully inside. Her mother straightened as they approached, wiping her hands nervously on her coat. "I'm so sorry," the woman said immediately. "She shouldn't have bothered you. I told her not to, but she didn't bother me," Nathaniel said gently. "My name is Nathaniel." "May I ask yours?" "Renee," she said, guarded. "Renee Foster." "Renee, would you allow me to help you and Maya find somewhere warm to stay tonight, just for tonight?" "No conditions." Renee's eyes filled instantly, the exhaustion of months finally cracking through months of forced composure. "We don't need charity." "This isn't charity," Nathaniel said quietly. "This is one person helping another." That's all. That night, Nathaniel arranged a room at a small extended-stay hotel 2 blocks from the restaurant, paid through the end of the month, and told his driver to bring hot meals each evening until further notice. He told himself it was simple decency, the kind any reasonable person would offer. But the detail about the warehouse with the blue sign kept surfacing in his mind, refusing to be dismissed. The following morning, he asked his assistant to pull every workplace accident report tied to Cross Logistics facilities from the past 3 years. It took less than an hour to find it. Daniel Foster. Forklift operator, 11 years of service. Killed in a loading dock accident at the Ridgeline warehouse 14 months earlier. After a safety inspection had flagged a faulty lift mechanism that maintenance never repaired due to budget cuts approved 2 levels below Nathaniel's desk. The family had been offered a standard settlement, which Renee, grieving, overwhelmed, and unfamiliar with corporate legal language, had signed without understanding she was waiving further claims. Within months, medical bills and lost income had swallowed what remained. By spring, they'd lost the apartment. Nathaniel sat in his office long after his assistant left for the evening, staring at the file, a slow, sick understanding settling over him. He hadn't personally approved the budget cuts. He hadn't known Daniel Foster's name until an hour ago. But the company bearing his family's name had failed a man who worked for it for over a decade. And that man's daughter had ended up standing at his dinner table, asking permission to eat food he was about to throw away. He didn't sleep that night. The next afternoon, he visited Renee and Maya at the hotel himself. No assistants, no driver waiting outside, just him and a folder he'd spent the morning preparing. "I need to tell you something," he said once they were seated. "And I need you to know I didn't understand any of this until yesterday." He explained everything, the warehouse, the safety report that had been ignored, the settlement she'd signed without realizing its consequences, the connection between his own company and the accident that had unraveled her family's life. Renee sat frozen through the explanation, her hands trembling in her lap. "You're saying your company killed my husband," she finally whispered. "And I let your daughter eat off your plate without knowing." "I'm saying my company failed your husband," Nathaniel corrected gently. "And I intend to make that right in whatever way you'll allow me to," Renee's voice cracked. "We don't want your guilt money." "This isn't guilt money," he said. "This is responsibility. There's a difference, and I intend to prove it to you, even if it takes time." Over the following weeks, Nathaniel personally oversaw the reopening of Daniel Foster's case, waiving the original settlement waiver and establishing a full trust fund for Maya's education and Renee's stability, along with immediate housing that had nothing to do with temporary hotel rooms. He didn't do it publicly. He didn't call a single reporter. When his legal team quietly asked whether a statement should be prepared for the press, he told them the story wasn't a press release. It was a debt, and debts didn't need an audience to be paid. He also ordered a full safety review across every warehouse the company operated, discovering 2 more facilities with maintenance shortfalls similar to the one that had cost Daniel Foster his life. Repairs were completed within the month, at a cost that made his board uneasy and that he approved without hesitation. Maya visited his office once, weeks later, no longer wearing the oversized jacket, her sneakers new, her braid neat. She placed a folded drawing on his desk, a stick figure family standing outside a small house, sun overhead, a dog they didn't yet own but had clearly already named. "Thank you for the leftovers," she said simply. Nathaniel looked at the drawing for a long moment before answering. "Thank you for asking." Months later, Renee started working part-time at the company's community outreach office, helping identify other families affected by workplace incidents that had slipped through the cracks of corporate bureaucracy, families who, like her, had signed things they didn't fully understand while grieving people they'd lost. Nathaniel gave her full authority to flag any case she believed deserved a second look, no matter how deeply buried in old files it was. At the following year's company gala, Nathaniel stood at the podium, not to celebrate quarterly earnings, but to speak about a warehouse worker named Daniel Foster, a family the company had once failed, and a 9-year-old girl who had taught him more about responsibility in one sentence than any boardroom ever had. He didn't use her name, he didn't need to. Near the back of the room, Maya sat beside her mother, both of them dressed simply, both of them finally quietly safe. Later that evening, as the crowd began to thin, Maya found him near the exit. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything," he said. "If I hadn't asked for your leftovers that night," she said, "would you have ever found out about my dad?" Nathaniel considered the question honestly before answering. "Eventually, maybe. But not soon enough, and maybe not with the same reason to actually care." Maya nodded slowly, satisfied, and slipped her hand into her mother's as they walked toward the door. Watching them go, Nathaniel understood something that no acquisition, no merger, no successful quarter had ever taught him, that the people easiest to overlook are often the ones carrying the truths that matter most, and that real responsibility doesn't begin with grand gestures. It begins the moment someone quietly asks for what little you were about to throw away, and you finally choose to look at them instead of past them.